If you've spent any time browsing JetPens.com, you've probably come across our writing samples. But did you know that we designed our own signature handwriting specifically for the job? From the open, neatly spaced letters to the slightly slanted writing angle, our writing is engineered for optimal legibility. Hey everyone! I'm Amelia, and I create the writing samples here at JetPens. I had to practice a lot to learn our signature style, and I picked up a bunch of useful tips and tricks along the way. For reference, here is what my handwriting normally looks like. And here's my handwriting in the JetPens style. If you've ever wanted to learn how to write like us, or are curious about how JetPens writing samples are made, keep watching. Guides. Use guides as training wheels to help keep your writing the right shape and size. I recommend starting with a detailed guide and working up to simpler guides as you go. You can find these guides in the card above. Here is the guide I practiced with. It lets you know exactly where to start and end your uppercase letters, lowercase letters, ascenders, and descenders. It even has a diagonal grid to guide your writing angle. We write at a 70-degree angle, which we found to be the most legible. I aim to keep my lowercase letters a little less than 3/4 of the height of my uppercase letters, and my descenders as short as possible. This keeps the descenders from getting tangled with the letters in the line below. Keeping our ascenders the same height as our uppercase letters helps as well. I recommend practicing on thin paper, like in a blank Stalogy notebook. That way you can easily see your guides without using fancy tools like a light box. As you progress, you can graduate to a simpler guide. Here are the guides I use to this day. They feature vertical lines every so often to help you line things up, but I've added in a few of my own for extra precision. I always use the diagonal guide for reference, even though I've memorized the proper writing angle. It's nice to have just in case. When I want to practice our handwriting without the help of a strict guide, I use a graph Maruman Nemosini notebook. The graph sheet styles act as a guide, and the paper is just thin enough to let your diagonal guide show through if you want a little more support. Letterforms. Now we'll talk about the letters themselves. If you look closely at our lowercase letters, you'll see that there are a few basic shapes that get repeated over and over again. These can be broken down into the O-type shapes, U-type shapes, and stems. The most basic O shape is a slanted oval and is used in the letters O, E, and C. Once we get the letters that combine the O shape with the line, like the letter A, we modify the shape slightly to increase its legibility. By cutting out the curve where the line connects, we create a larger gap between the two shapes, making them much easier to distinguish. There are two different modified O shapes, depending on which side of the line the O is found. U-type shapes are similar to the modified O shape. One side of the U is at a slightly lower angle to increase legibility when paired with other shapes. There are two U-type shapes which are identical in form, but upside down from each other. Stems are fairly straightforward, but are crucial to create a handwriting that looks even and consistent. If your lines aren't kept at the appropriate height and angle, your writing runs the risk of looking messy. All letters of the alphabet are made up of 3 basic shape types, except for the letters S, V, W, X, and Z. V and W are made up of a sharper variation of the U shape, but S, X, and Z are truly unique. Due to that, these 3 letter shapes will need some extra focus. Capital letters tend to have their own unique shapes as well, but in general should be kept open, balanced, and clear. Practice writing these basic shapes until you can repeat them with consistency. It helps to focus on one shape type at a time, switching between the different variations as you practice. Then, try pairing different letters together, then stringing them into words. Put extra care into keeping the shapes uniform across letters, keeping your lines parallel, and starting and ending your letters at the guidelines. We try to keep our letters wide and open to maximize their legibility. I recommend practicing with a fine-tip gel pen like the Pilot Hi-Tech C because it's easier to find mistakes. However, practicing with a broader point pen like the Tombow twin-tone marker, forces you to open up your letters. Spacing. Another way we keep our handwriting neat is by keeping letters at uniform distances. The spacing becomes most obvious when writing a bunch of narrow letters in a row, so these areas are especially important. I find that writing out all of the vertical lines first, and then returning to cross your T's and dot your I's once the word is written, makes it easier to focus on keeping things even. When I first started working on the JetPens hand, I was surprised by how difficult it was to relearn letter spacing. I had to figure out where to start each letter so that it ended in the right spot. Writing out the same sentence again and again helped me relearn how to space my letters by allowing me to really focus on that aspect of writing. Review and practice. Practice makes improvement, but active practice makes faster improvement. When you're learning a new style of writing, it's important to analyze your work as you go instead of just writing mindlessly. Annotate your writing and look for areas that you need to work on. Are the letters even? Consistent? Wide enough? Do you need to open up a letter more? Being intentional about what you work on will allow you to improve quickly. I recommend using a multi-pen like the Uni Jetstream 3 when you annotate. It has 3 different colors, so you can color code your work and quickly switch between practicing and annotating colors. When you are just starting out, it helps to trace over existing handwriting, then to try it again without reference on a separate piece of paper. You can overlay the 2 papers to see where you need to improve. Practicing often is another key to learning quickly. Try setting aside time to practice a few times a week, or incorporate it into an existing routine. I practiced by using the JetPens handwriting instead of my own when I took notes or journaled. If you want to see more handwriting videos, click the card above to watch our playlist. Make sure to like and subscribe for more stationery videos. Thank you for watching, and see you next time!